Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. In our second segment today, Larry Bragman, the mayor of Fairfax, will join us. Larry, can you introduce our first guest?
I will, Peter. Our first guest today is Gary Phillips. Gary is a candidate for mayor of San Rafael. His opponent is Greg Brockbank. Greg was with us last July. Gary has served on the San Rafael City Council for about 12 years. Some of that time he was vice mayor. Before that, he was president of the Dixie School Board. He's a certified public accountant. Recently, he's worked with the San Rafael Chamber of Commerce, and he's here to talk to us about the issues in San Rafael today. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Larry.
Gary, what do you see as the key issues in your race, and how are you different than Greg as you look at those issues?
Well, certainly there are a number of key issues, but to start with the list, many of them are financially oriented. We saw that, heard that last night in a debate at the North San Rafael Coalition. Each of the four council members, appropriately so I would suggest, are concerned about the financial condition of the city. And I happen to be a CPA, and I've dealt with those financial issues not only with the city, having served on city council for 12 years, but also when I was involved with the Dixie School Board, we had school closures. That's never fun. So the issue of the financial concern has to be on the top of most people's lists. And I happen to be, I think, better prepared than most as serving as a managing partner of our CPA firm, pretty good sized firm, here, San Rafael, San Francisco, and several other locations. So that experience, I think, is going to put me in good stead to deal with as effectively as we can the issues that are going to be before us and are certainly there now. Another issue which comes up when I walk neighborhoods is the issue of employee benefit plans, pension and employee benefits. That comes up because it's received a lot of press, appropriately so, a lot of concern, because we know that in these difficult economic times, it translates to only so many dollars for the services we're trying to provide: police, fire, library, safe streets and roads, et cetera. So there's a direct correlation between available funds and that issue, which we need to address. I happen to be endorsed by the police and fire, and I've been consistent in my message with regard to that concern. Recently, the City Council, in discussion, collaboration with the police, fire, and other employee units, have made some changes to the plan. And I think that those changes are a good step in the right direction. What concerns me some, though, is that there hasn't been an analysis of the result of those changes. Maybe we're in the right place, maybe we're not. But it'd be nice for us, and I think the residents of San Rafael, to know where we're at. And so one of the first things I intend to do is to answer that question. Where are we at? And if we're not in the right place, I've already had discussions with police and fire to say we need to sit down and talk about this. And I treasure their endorsement, because it's going to come down to a negotiation, a discussion in a civil way, so as not to create too much chaos with regard to the issue, but we're going to face that, and I'm good at that. I said his background as a CPA, quite frankly.
Gary, we were going to go into depth on this a little later,
okay,
but let's dive into it right now.
Right.
You were on the council for 12 years when the current contracts were approved, so you should have pretty clear knowledge of them. And what is your proposal if we find this unsustainable? Do we have to cut benefits for current beneficiaries? Do we create a two-tier system that can cause friction in the workplace? What do you see as the reasonable approaches?
Well, it's premature to some degree, and let me touch on why I say that. It certainly is an appropriate question, but first we need to determine where we're at before you can start to create solutions. What is the current situation? If the current situation is such that we're not in an unsustainable or sustainable situation, then let's move on to some of the other concerns. If, however, we're not in the right place, then we're going to have to look at alternatives. And some have been listed, if you will, by the Marin County Mayor and City Council members. They've addressed the issue to lay it on the table. Or more broadly, the state is quite concerned about it, because it's not just San Rafael. It's every city, I would suggest, in California has the same situation. If you look at our schedule, employee benefit schedule and pension plan, it's no more generous than any other city in Marin County, and I suspect statewide. It's not coincidental, but it's apparent if you look at the schedules as to the benefits that are currently being attributed to the current employees. So it's interesting that we all kind of rose to that same level, and certainly during my time, what we were concerned about was, and if you recall back to 2007, not so very long ago, but 2007, the employment situation was entirely different than it is today. Everybody was trying to hire. We were trying to hire in our firm, and it was almost impossible to hire people because it was almost full employment or substantial employment. So we were concerned about being competitive with other cities in Marin County, other cities in California. We wanted, because San Rafael is a real city. San Rafael has some real problems and issues that need to be addressed, and I would suggest by the best people. And so we wanted to put ourselves in a position where we would hire people out of the academy that were the best, and so that the citizens of San Rafael would be well protected. So we felt incumbent upon us to be at least competitive. Like I said, our plan was a little less generous than some cities because their employees had to contribute to the plan itself up to around 11%. It varies a little bit, but 11%. Most cities had nothing. Our first retirement where you receive full benefits was age 55. A number of cities are age 50, which means you're paying out benefits for another 5 years under the plan that many cities have. So while ours was comparable and competitive, certainly not the most generous. But to come back to your question, what are we going to do? We're going to look at all the alternatives, and I've read a number of reports. I'm pretty well versed on the alternatives. But first I want to figure out where we're at and to determine the steps that are necessary to perhaps put us in a different place.
And a
current
quick
employees will receive what we've already promised. That's a contract. That's my word. That's the deal. New employees, that may be a different issue altogether.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Did San Rafael take a pension payment holiday when the stock market returns were strong? Because many entities did that. They stopped paying in, and it's one of the reasons for the current crunch.
Yes, you may recall 2007, the market was still going up substantially, unlike today, unfortunately, down almost 400 points, but it was up substantially. That trend continued to October 2008, when it, after I was off the council, dropped down significantly. So we had fewer invested assets, and the return on those investments wasn't as good as it had been previously.
So what period of time did we take a holiday and not pay into the pension accounts?
I don't know the exact years, but during that period, I do recall the discussions, and the discussions were that we can remain competitive without having to significantly write a check because of the increase in the asset value from which the benefits were going to be paid. So I can't give you the exact year, but during that time frame.
I'm glad to hear it's going to be a civil discussion, keeping in mind the contracts that you've entered into, because some of the municipalities and cities in California, Costa Mesa, for example, was a complete disaster and really imposed some draconian measures that were very unfair to their workers. You know, you hear a lot around, is this city business friendly? Is this city not business friendly? I'm wondering, your work with the Chamber of Commerce here in San Rafael, if the Chamber considers San Rafael a business-friendly or a business-unfriendly city, and what the heck does it mean to be an unfriendly business city? I don't understand that.
That's a very good question. I am the chairman of the San Rafael Chamber of Commerce. I've been in business for a long time. I run our firm. I was a managing partner. And so through those involvements, pretty versed on the business aspects of our environment and our economy. The Chamber, I think it would be fair to say we have probably 800 members, some number like that, very much advocate for the downtown business as well as those surrounding areas, because that's the lifeblood of our community. People think of San Rafael, you think oftentimes, 4th Street, but now it's expanded out to other areas and communities and neighborhoods, all important. But from a business standpoint, that's the environment. We're pretty active as proponents of business in San Rafael. We meet on a monthly basis with the mayor and other members of City Council and other BID, Business Improvement District representatives, to talk about some of the issues, to make it more friendly. And more friendly sometimes as simple as signage. Or it could be as simple as permits. Okay, the process is more complicated than it needs to be to accomplish something that you're trying to achieve, but nevertheless makes it more complicated.
And to what extent did the Target controversy divide your membership at the Chamber? Because the Chamber's comprised of local businesses like Bill Daniels at United, who was opposed to Target.
Yes.
So how did you deal with that? And also, do you regard that now as a settled issue?
I regard it as a settled issue, and I'll tell you why in a moment. How did our Chamber deal with it? I can tell you precisely how we dealt with it, and I think it was in a reasonable way. We invited representatives from Target to speak to the Chamber members, the board members, of which there are 24, came and made a presentation. And then we invited Bill Daniels, because he had strong feelings in opposition, to make a similar presentation. I think it's fair to say, and certainly in my case, saying specifically, we think Bill Daniels is a wonderful person. Sure. He's added a lot to the community. United Market has contributed widely, and hats off to Bill. At the same time, our process was this. Both presentations were made, questions were asked of both sides. We then took a vote, and it wasn't just a raise your hand or not vote, but it was, okay, Peter, tell us why you're voting yes or no. Give us your reasons, and around the table. Larry, what are your reasons, and tell us why. Now, these are very large businesses for Marin County, very small businesses for Marin County. Some that have been here for an awful long time, others not. So a broad cross range of businesses in San Rafael. The vote came down in favor of Target 15-2. Pretty unanimous, for good solid reasons. Maybe it was job creation. It might have been shopping alternatives. Why not create shopping alternatives? Location, it's zoned for this kind of business. It's not, creating huge traffic jams because it's not downtown. It's zoned properly. Revenue was a factor. It's an additional, some will say, independent study would indicate $675,000 of additional sales tax revenue, additional in San Rafael. And the audience knows certainly that San Rafael, like every other city in San Rafael right now, is short of operating funds, which translate to library hours and police on the beat and down the list of services we expect. So to summarize, it was pretty conclusive as to the businesses that were in favor of Target.
Let me ask you, I'm interested in that process when you're going around the table and talking to everyone. Bob, what do you think? Mary, what do you think? Sally, what do you think? And I was looking at the chamber's, the local chamber's website the other day, and I noticed that they didn't take a position on Marin Energy. And I'm wondering if that process where you go around the table, was it like 6 and 6 or 12 and 12, as you were saying, or was there some other factor that just got in the way of even coming to a decision on Marin Energy, which seems to be a great success as we view it?
Well, I happen to be big green with regard to MEA. With regard to that specific issue, that didn't come before us when I was chair. Not to say that it shouldn't, because one of the things I said when I became chair was we need to become more of an advocate for the businesses and be perhaps more outspoken, or at least deliver our message as to what we think is appropriate, and then people can weigh that and make their decision. So that was before, so I can't really express. Until recently, the chamber really didn't get into a lot of those issues. I think the chamber should.
Gary, retiring Mayor Al Boro has endorsed you, and it seems like he handpicked you to replace him, so we can assume you have a lot in common. What differences do you have with Mayor Boro on policy?
Thanks for the question. But let me talk a little bit about the process that we went through.
In 1 minute, please.
Oh, sorry.
It goes quick.
It does go quick. Mayor Boro has worked with virtually everybody in town. The current planning commission, the current sitting council members, prior and past. He's seen a lot, and I think everyone would agree, certainly the vast majority, that he has the best wishes for San Rafael. That's his love and that's his passion, and he's directed only to San Rafael in terms of where he wants to see matters go. I was pleased, I know Al, obviously, served with him for 12 years. I was pleased when he came to say, I'm thinking of retirement. I would like you to think about running for the position because I think you're the most suited for our next mayor. Again, he knows everybody in town, including, quite frankly, Greg Brockbank. He's worked with him and other members, and I think that says a lot. I also have, as endorsement, all of the prior city council members, virtually all, they're in this area, planning commissioners, police chief. Today, I was pleased to receive the endorsement of Bob Doyle and Kerry Mazzoni as other
Right.
examples. I can give you quite a few. They're all people that know the job, know San Rafael, and have the best interest in San Rafael. So to come back to your question, how are we similar and different? We are similar in many ways. I have great passion for the city. I'm only here for San Rafael. I've been involved in San
Can you
Rafael.
name two differences with Mayor Boro?
Al, I think, would suggest that he's more conservative than I am. I'm a registered Democrat. I perhaps, and I don't want to, put a slant on this, because I know that he's concerned about the environment. First assigned to Kyoto and the city of California for the environmental issues. I'm perhaps a little bit more in that bent, if you will. Technologically, I may be a little bit more out there. I do run or manage our consulting section, so there may be some of that. But when you come down to basic cores and interest for the city, I'm pleased that we have similar interests.
We're technically out of time, but I insist on an extra 30 seconds. What's your position on the red light cameras?
I knew he was going to. I'm so sick of this.
I need to know.
It's
What is your position?
unbelievable.
LA has banned them. I want to see them removed from San Rafael. What's your position?
Are we on camera?
Yes?
Yeah, we're on the camera.
We're still on.
I thought you'd said extended.
No.
Well, it doesn't matter too much because to me it's pretty simple. If people are aware that the red light camera is there and they still violate the law, they still go through the stop sign and perhaps endangering pedestrians, well then perhaps there should be some penalty for doing that.
Should it be $500 for a rolling stop?
I would have to look at it in comparison to others. Our fee structure is always in comparison to others, and so therefore I think it has to be taken into account. 500 strikes me as a little bit high, to be honest with you, but I'd have to look at that in more detail.
If you become mayor, I'm sending you a picture of his car. that is definitely happening. But let's give it another few seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
I really want to ask you this, and
Sure.
we invited you here, and we really thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
What do you want to tell the folks is your vision for the city if you're elected mayor?
My vision for the city is to, in some ways, to return it to a few years ago when downtown was really vibrant, when downtown was a pleasant place to visit, when downtown was safe. I'm not saying that it's not now, but I'm hearing a lot of concerns about the downtown element of safety element. So I want to see that. I want us to return to economic vibrance. So in fact, we can keep the library hours open. We should. I co-chair Measure C to help that some, but it needs more. The goods and services that the city provides, people rely upon. And my focus of attention is safety. A lot of other issues that I'm interested in, I'm knowledgeable about, but when it comes down to it, what do people expect from the city? They expect police to show up if they have a problem. They expect safety on the streets. They expect the EMS to show if you have a heart issue. Library hours to be open. I'm focusing my attention on those issues.
Gary Phillips, candidate for mayor of San Rafael. Thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you very much.
Larry Bragman returns to our show today. He's an attorney and is currently the mayor of Fairfax. He's up for re-election to the town council this November. Welcome back, Larry.
Thanks a lot. It's good to be back.
Tell us about the status of your budgets and pensions. These are the challenging issues for local government these days, and we were just talking with San Rafael mayoral candidate Gary Phillips about that in the preceding segment. What portion of your budget in Fairfax goes to pension costs, and have you made any adjustments to your employee pension plans so far?
Okay. The town of Fairfax, like most of the other towns and cities, is a service agency. So we probably have about 80% of our budget goes to salary and benefits. I can't really break down the pension and benefits out of that, but it's significant. It's over $1 million. We have a separate pension override tax in Fairfax, which for many years actually covered our pension costs. We are now, due to the real estate bubble collapsing, we're not generating that kind of revenue out of the pension override tax. And so for the last couple of years, pension costs have been eating into our general fund budget, which is our operating budget. What Fairfax has done in that regard is to work with the employee groups, with the bargaining units. We've had a two-tier retirement system in effect for about the last 3 years. So new hires don't get the same pension benefits that existing hires did. So that vastly reduces pension costs for that group of employees. There's longer retirement age and less generous benefits upon retirement for that group. This year, facing another budget crunch, we negotiated a reduction in pension contributions by the town towards employee benefits. So it's kind of a complicated formula, but pension benefits are paid both by the employer and employee in the public sector. And for many years in Fairfax, the employer, us, was paying the employee portion. And there's reasons for that historically. The stock market was growing up and up and up, and decision makers felt that was a good deal for the public entity. Turned out with the recent stock market decline, not such a good deal. This year, we negotiated with all our bargaining units, and we reached an agreement with them to reduce our contribution 5% across the board over the next 2 years, which we feel is a fair and equitable start to attacking our pension cost problems in Fairfax. So, my feeling has been, that public employees have been somewhat unfairly tagged as the villain in this little drama. They're not. A lot of the pension costs increase is due to the decline in the market, because pension funds are invested in markets, and when markets decline, public entity contributions have to go up, because we've made a commitment to pay loyal employees pension benefits for their service, and those commitments remain. So we've been working with our bargaining units jointly to solve the problem.
And I take it you want to keep services at the level that you need for your city, safety and health.
Yes, yeah, we feel that the quality of life in Fairfax is an important but intangible benefit that we confer. We think that's why a lot of people like Fairfax come to Fairfax, are migrating to Fairfax, families.
I would think that some of the cities are taking a look at the services. For example, San Anselmo combining its police forces with Twin Cities. Is Fairfax inclined to enter into agreements like that, or are there other methods or issues that could be addressed to work on that issue?
Yeah, it's a big issue. It's been a big issue. And again, if you look at the big picture, to my way of thinking, consolidation, merger is somewhat of a corporate approach to the problem. The problem is revenue. Revenue is not declining because of the unfairness of salaries that we're giving to police officers in Fairfax. Police officers and public safety folks in Fairfax are probably at the low end of the spectrum for Marin County. The problem is the decline in public revenue, the decline in the public economy. We looked at consolidating with San Anselmo about 2 or 3 years ago. We weren't able to come to really any kind of modus vivendi or any kind of agreement that we were comfortable with, because Fairfax wants to maintain a certain level of service and accessibility. We have a police station that's open 24/7. So anytime anyone, a visitor or resident alike, needs police service, it's available. That all being said, yeah, I do think there's approaches where we can create greater efficiencies in delivering public safety. I think one of the things that we can do, and what I'm very interested in doing, is working collaboratively with other jurisdictions. So for example, we have a 24/7 dispatch center, great dispatch, all professionally manned 24/7, or I should say staffed, because they're women. Why not share that facility with other jurisdictions in the area? So I think there's ways of leveraging our public safety aspects where we're not giving up local control, we're maintaining local command. And I think that's important, because when we looked into this in great depth with San Anselmo, I read a lot of the background literature coming out of Southern California in particular. And in general, the jurisdictions that are happiest with their police public safety are jurisdictions that locally control it. Unincorporated jurisdictions that are relying on county services, where you may not know who's patrolling your streets and they may not know you, are generally less favorably looked upon.
Mm-hmm. Larry, recently Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead has proposed building Terrapin Crossroads in Fairfax, defined as a community center and a music venue. You've already got a lot of great live music venues on Broadway. I come to Fairfax for that. Are you surprised at all at some of the opposition that's surfaced?
I'm not surprised. It's human nature. Whether you're talking about baseball parks in San Rafael or a live music venue in Fairfax, human nature is that the residents closest to the proposed development are going to have the most serious concerns about its impacts on them, on their biggest investment that they have, which is their home. So I'm not really surprised at it.
This is not in my neighborhood syndrome.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a way of dismissing it. We know the project will probably have impacts. That's why we have hearings and a transparent project that we go through with development. And the point of that process, it's a democratic process where all the stakeholders can sit down in a public hearing with their elected officials, operating transparently to A, inventory the impacts, B, see if the impacts can be mitigated, and C, if they can't be mitigated, what can we do? So this is part of the process we have been elected to do. I think there are going to be impacts of this that we need to deal with on the project. I think we should give democracy a chance and work through it, and that's what I am hoping will occur.
The PG&E smart meter issue in Fairfax seems to be alive and well. Where are you on that position, and what have you asked PG&E to do, if anything, and where do you see that coming out?
Fairfax was the first jurisdiction in California to pass a moratorium against smart meters on August 4th, 2010. Since then, jurisdictions representing 2.5 million Californians have passed similar moratoriums. And we have made a little bit of progress with it. We are in the California Public Utilities Commission. They have an administrative law process that we're now actively engaged in through our pro bono attorney, Jim Tobin. Thank you, Jim, who has been representing us in that proceeding. And we are litigating what's called an opt-out proposal by PG&E. And what PG&E's proposal is that if ratepayers want to opt out, they can pay us to do so. They can pay $180 and pay $13 a month for eternity, or they can pay, Plan B is $130 upfront and $20 for eternity. We don't think that's fair. We think it's discriminatory against our residents who do have or report EMF sensitivity. I was just looking at a study that was done through the California Department of Health Services that reported about a 3% incidence of electromagnetic sensitivity. We think those folks should get protected. We are in the CPUC. I was just down at CPUC last week, addressed the court, and we're trying to work out an equitable way that won't discriminate against our residents and will respect our local ordinances.
Larry Bragman, thanks for joining us today, Mayor of Fairfax.
Thanks a lot.